We have a very, very special episode. Today we are doing a bit of time traveling into the ultimate world of nostalgia. Any kid who grew up in the 90s remembers the theme song to a very special show. Whenever it comes on, we would just light up, and still do. It's still a thing to this day. Everyone lights up when they hear that song. So right now we have in the house the writers, directors, producers, showrunners, anybody who's anybody from X-Men, the animated series. Hi! So, thank you guys for being here. I'm a little bit nervous because you guys are like my childhood, so there's a whole bunch of nostalgia happening right now.
Thank you
so
for having
happy.
us.
Yes.
So, let's go ahead and introduce. Start with Len.
I'm Len Uhley. I don't know which camera to look at. Here we are.
Right there.
I'm Len Uhley, and I was a writer of 3 episodes on the X-Men series, and I've been doing animation before and since for 30-some years. I wrote the first episode that used Bobby Iceman Drake, called Cold Comfort, and I did the Nightcrawler episode and the follow-up to that, which was called Bloodlines. So
It's like Nightcrawler's like, I love Nightcrawler.
yeah, rather fond of it.
I know, he's
Anyway.
great.
I'm Julia Leewald. I was one of the writers for X-Men the Animated Series. Did the first part of Days of Future Past Part 1 that brought in Bishop rather than the Kitty Pryde character there, and had fun with that. And
I'm learning this as we go, so it's pretty exciting for me to be like I knew you guys were writers, but I didn't know which episodes, and now I'm going I remember that episode.
Well,
I
good.
remember that episode.
Good. Got to write some other episodes, and also got to pitch some stories, including one that became the story Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my personal favorites.
I'm just gonna spend the whole time just crying over all the X-Men goodness happening right now. Hi, Eric.
Oh, well, I'm Eric Leewald, and I got to hire wonderful people like this to write the 76 episodes, and I was the supervising story editor, which now is called a showrunner. And so I and a dear friend of mine from college, Mark Edens, laid out the first 26 stories, and was just in charge of making sure that everybody kind of kept on the same page, even though they were very, very, very different people. So if there was a problem with the script, it was my responsibility.
That's amazing. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm still going to try to calm down. We will have Larry here shortly.
Yeah.
This is Los Angeles. There's a bit of a traffic thing that happens, so whenever Larry comes in, he's welcome to just jump on.
Right in.
And Larry was a producer and director for X-Men, the animated series as well. So we have so many questions for you guys,
Sure.
and I'm already watching them come in from the audience as well. So it's happening. We're such big fans here at Sideshow. As you can see, we have our X-Men animated series statues right here. And by the way, Rogue and Gambit should be here, except they're already sold out.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, they went. So these are Kotobukiya 10th scale
Oh my God, yeah.
statues, and they're amazing based on X-Men 90s.
Yes.
And the Rogue and Gambit one, it was a 2-pack, Storm and Bishop over here, and they just
Gone.
gone because
Oh my God.
Rogue and Gambit.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
already in the lobby beforehand, we were discussing how Rogue and Gambit are so dear to the hearts of so many fans that
The Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
yeah, I
Oh,
know.
the
They're the
90s.
guys.
Nice.
That
Nice.
yes, exactly.
That'll work.
There's
Yeah.
something about them together that just
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And you guys were the ones who brought them together. They weren't together in the comics
Right.
before. So thank you for that. So how did each of you come to work on X-Men the animated series?
Well,
Well,
Okay.
going in the Wayback Machine, we all met at Disney TV Animation
Oh, wow.
Right.
for the Disney Afternoon.
Late 80s.
Yeah,
we were working
Yeah.
on DuckTales, TailSpin, all that stuff.
Chippendales Rescue
What?
Rangers, Goof
Yeah,
Troop,
Julia wrote 14 of the Rescue Rangers, more than anybody.
Chippendales Rescue Rangers. That was where I
When
met.
I was little, my mom made me a purple jumpsuit that I would
Were you-
wear. I was Gadget.
She was Gadget.
and I would wear
Gadget.
little mouse ears in my purple jumpsuit and watch that show. I still own the entire series of Rescue Rangers on DVD.
Yeah,
Dang.
well, you'll
Our
see
people.
that.
Our people.
Yeah.
Our people.
Yeah.
In some of the episodes, she's listed as Julia Roberts because that was her maiden name.
I'm the original Julia
Don't-
Roberts.
don't
but
miss
Oh,
that.
I was
just
like,
pointing that
wow.
out. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So you guys worked on the Disney app. I'm sorry, I hijacked your question.
Right.
No, but that's how we all met each other.
That's right.
And then when we all.
Then when they let basically everybody go, we all started
Well,
working for other companies, and I'd worked for the Fox people on a couple shows. On the last season, I was a supervising guy on the last season of Beetlejuice. For Margaret Lesh and Sidney. So that's how literally the night before they're going to have 40 people in there with Stan Lee and all the Marvel people and Chaim Saban and all the Fox people. This huge group of people say we're gonna make X-Men happen. It was the launch meeting at 10 in the morning. That the night before I got a call from them saying, oh, by the way, we decided we're going to have you run X-Men. You're gonna develop the show, and you're gonna be the story editor. And I said, oh, that's great, guys, that's great. And I'm whispering to Julia, now who are the X-Men again? So there was no internet, there was no one to call. I just had to go to the meeting and smile and nod, and people like Larry Houston, who had memorized every one of the comic books. I'd read other Marvel properties, some DC, but I didn't know them. But they just, I guess, thought that my tone was right for the show.
Well, they clearly saw something, and they were clearly correct.
So I read them very fast. I read the books very fast.
and then, Len, you were brought on board.
Well, I was still at Disney when the show began. And then subsequently, when I was no longer at Disney, thank goodness Eric and Julia were there to catch me. And so I was in, I guess, 4th season. Yeah. And then got a chance. And since I had grown up reading comic books,
right.
DC though mostly. It's okay. But I sort of knew that lingo too, so I went from funny animals to people in tights, and it all worked out.
We need to quote that. I went from funny animals to people in tights. And I felt at home in the world, and fortunately Eric had this enormous, I don't know who wrote it at the time, this encyclopedia of Marvel characters, so I could be brought up to speed rather quickly. And so then I was brought in to do freelance on 3 of the episodes that I mentioned, and it was a terrific experience because, as you're well aware, Eric was running a show that was not a kiddie show. It was not just for the under 4 set. They were doing adult melodrama, and it was done brilliantly, and they cared about their characters, and that's the thing that makes it such an unusual show, that it was about how people feel. Right, and it actually is why the show has lasted the test of time, because you can still watch that show, and it's still one of the, I think it's the best version of the Phoenix Saga out there. It's the best version. Larry's here!
Yeah.
Same with Days of Future Past. It's like the best version of the Sentinels. Like all of everything from the comics that came onto the show was done perfectly and with such care to the fan base and to the characters and to who they are emotionally. And that's why, even as an adult, I can still watch the show and connect to exactly what I'm watching. Hi, Larry. So, how's it going? Welcome. So sorry that it was a little bit stressful this morning.
I am quite embarrassed not to be here on time.
It's totally fine.
We just got started.
We seriously just got started.
We were only in the 2nd season.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Larry. Can you introduce yourself to the camera and just what
Which
it
one?
is? That's a good one. What it was.
Hi, I'm Larry Houston. I'm the producer-director of the X-Men. I've also been the director of other shows like G.I. Joe, Captain Planet, Fantastic Four, Johnny Quest, Kid and Play, what's another one? The Karate Kid, and also and even Care Bears. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything.
Care Bears?
Yeah, I know, Care Bears.
I'm here for Care Bears.
Some of us worked on Strawberry Shortcake.
We all did.
We run the gamut.
We all worked on Strawberry Shortcake, Madeline, and Winnie the Pooh.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I was totally terrified of the peculiar purple pie man of Porcupine Peak. I was so terrified.
It's the alliteration that got
I
it,
was just
right?
so scared of him as a kid because he was all gross and I just really didn't like him. Wow. Okay, so perfect time for Larry. How did you come to work on X-Men, the animated series?
I started kind of way back in like 1980, in the 1980s, when we were trying to get the X-Men on the air.
Marvel
With Margaret Lesh and Stan Lee, we came out. They found the financing to do a pilot called Pride of the X-Men. It was myself, Rick Holberg, and Will Mineo, and we put together a pilot to try and get the X-Men started way back when. And it was a half-hour pilot. We got Japanese animation. We got the best script we thought we had at the time, and we put it out there. And right then, they only had three networks: CBS, NBC, ABC. Nobody was interested in the show. And it was like we did our best, and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. You got to understand there had never been a Marvel movie, which is hard to imagine now. There have been 10 or 11 attempts at Marvel TV shows that were, like The Thing meets the Flintstones.
Yeah, and like the Spider-Man show.
Where they have pets. Hollywood just didn't get X-Men at all, and Margaret Lesh had tried for 7 or 8 years to get them to buy it, and they just said no, it's a tiny audience. It's just a few geeks in their
40,000
basements.
people read the comics. Who's
Right,
going to watch the show? We need millions.
We need 3 million. So this will never work. It'll never work. And then when Margaret suddenly found herself as head of Fox Kids, she
Which
said,
was brand new.
I'm going to make the X-Men. And her boss didn't see it. Her boss said, look, if this fails, I'm going to fire you. Okay, I'm still going to do it. We wrote the first script.
Wow.
All the advertisers and TV stations around the country that were going to run it looked at, what the heck is this? No kid's going to watch this adult stuff. And there was
little did they know, there's a whole generation of us.
So as a result, they only hired all the creative people for the first 13 episodes for one season.
Yeah,
and when we were done with our work, we were all let go, thinking that it was never gonna play.
It was gonna be one and gone.
And so 3 months later, when it comes on and becomes the #1 hit, they had to embarrassingly call us. Can you come back?
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine what my childhood would have been like. Like I could not be sitting in this chair right now. I could be an entirely different person because between the X-Men animated series and Batman the animated series, that's what got me into a comic book shop when I was 8 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Millions of people.
Yeah.
In fact, the estimate was, we were told, look, when you do this show, 85% of the people that turn on won't know what a mutant is, won't know what an X-Men is. So you have to be very. So
I was like, I saw people with superpowers. Like, what else did I need? I mean, the rest of it fell into place.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Okay. So I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit, but what type of research was done to get the show going? From comic books and
Human encyclopedia.
I've heard they actually mentioned that before you came on. They were like, "Well, Larry knew everything."
I pretty much grew up a comic book geek all of my life, and when it came to the X-Men, I knew all of the X-Men stuff inside and out. So when there was something that needed some knowledge about the show, even Stan would ask me because he didn't create the characters. I would tell him what this character did, what this character did, and stuff like that.
Wow.
And
because people forget there was a Stanley Jack Kirby version in the early '60s, which was a bunch of white teenage Americans in blue suits, and then it died because it was not a very strong book, and for 5 years, and then it was brought back to life by Len Wein and Chris Claremont and John Byrne. But Len was given the reason Wolverine's Canadian is that Len was told, we want to make the kind of an international cast, so start thinking up mutants from other countries. So that week he put a Canadian Wolverine in a Hulk episode, the Hulk book, and that's the origin of Wolverine. So we got Storm from Africa, and he got
Nightcrawler from Germany.
Russian Colossus. So that's why we have a United Nations of X-Men, is because and that goes back of all things. There was an accountant at Marvel, which was a much smaller company then, that said, the book died here, but the reprints sell well overseas. So they made the creative decision, if it's selling overseas, let's make them international. An accountant gave us the international X-Men.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Accountant, who knew?
Wow. So, I mean, how does it feel to have added to a comic book legacy such as the X-Men?
Larry?
I feel very blessed and very happy that we were able to accomplish what we did, because we've been able to give the audience the entertainment that we knew that they would want, but we had to fight so many people to get it on the air that we knew there was an audience for it, but we couldn't get past the gatekeepers, you know, who kept saying no, 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 no. And finally, when we got the shot with Margaret, you know, she gave us the, not carte blanche, but she basically said, go for it. And she had faith in myself and Eric's and Julia and Will Mineo and Rick Holberg and you.
And me.
Sorry.
Yeah. A little faith. Fewer episodes to have faith in. Yeah.
Wow.
We got it on the air. And the thing you got to remember, back in the first season, they thought we were going to be one and gone.
Yeah.
And, you know, there were no computers, no likes, dislikes and stuff. So pretty much we had to do the show based upon our gut instincts as to what makes a good story. And we had no idea until Julia, sometime near the end of the season, she went to the networks to find out, do the kids like the show?
We
Like
had
about
no
six
feedback.
or 8 weeks in, you went in.
Yeah, there was no feedback back, no immediate feedback.
Right,
And
right.
was, oh yeah, we're getting feedback, and took me into a hallway. And if you can picture those big sort of white milky cartons that mailmen put their, you know, those big ones, down both sides of the corridor, stacked to the ceiling, were postcards from kids from the Fox Kids Club, if you may remember those.
I
days.
remember that.
Yeah.
I was like, I was one of those kids.
Yeah.
So,
Written
She
saying
saw
they-
your card.
saying they love the X-Men.
so
It's like
a whole
that.
hallway full of postcards from
Yeah.
little kids from all over the country saying how
That's
much they
when,
love the X-Men.
and that's when
Floor
we
to
finally
ceiling.
started finding out that, you know, the kids like what we were
They
doing.
like us.
The audience, they like us.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm trying not to cry. I'm just gonna sit here and not cry. So, do you guys have a favorite storyline that you were a part of?
Sure. Larry?
Larry.
There are a couple. I mean, there's the one I always bring up, which is the Rogue story. But there's also the time travel story. There's Beauty and the Beast episode. There's
I'm so.
oh
No, I know exactly. Julia mentioned the Beauty and the Beast episode, and I was
yeah.
like, ah! Anyway, go on.
There's
Sorry.
always Days of Future Past, which we did, and obviously the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix stuff. We had there's a lot of stories that we're
To
very
this
proud of.
day, when someone asks me to explain to them the Dark Phoenix storyline, I still
Right.
give them the episodes of. I just watch this. Just spend like a couple hours watching this, and that's
Right.
you know, comic book history. It's the best way it's ever been told. So
yeah. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. There's a lot of them, but those are the overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a chance to write Nightcrawler. I mean, just in terms of a good action show, the thing I did with Cold Comfort with Bobby Drake was fun. But Nightcrawler was kind of unusual because, as you know, the character has profound faith, and that's something you don't see depicted, certainly in children's television. And I mean, yes, there's David and the Goliath and the Veggie Tales and all those things, and those things came later. But to do this in a superhero action show was peculiar, and the fact that we had wonderful people backing us up, our standards and practices person was saying, yeah, go ahead, because by that point, 4 seasons in, they had earned her trust, and she said, you're doing this? And so we did this extraordinary episode, which was, and I was thrilled to be cast, and again, this is all about casting, to write this episode, because nothing like that had ever been done. And we got a chance to do something that really moved people. And when we go to these conventions now, people come up and say, this is the first time I was able to talk with my family about something that mattered to me. And it just, it
How
touches
lovely.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody, whenever we go to these things, we hear how much, like the way you're reacting, we hear how much the show
Yeah.
touched people, and it was part of their childhood, and it sometimes the stories are very personal and very moving, and we're just thrilled that, because we sit in our rooms, we type,
Yeah.
but then we go and we hear people say how much it meant to them, and we're like, wow, thank you.
Well, to be a part of the X-Men is also an incredibly special thing, because the X-Men are the ones who people tell them they're not normal, you know?
Right.
And so I feel like the reason that you wind up with so many personal stories is because the X-Men help people feel like they belong somewhere, or find find their school for gifted youngsters. Like that might be, like here at Sideshow or somewhere at a convention or like, you know what I mean? Like that's, they're a tribe and they created their own tribe when there was none. And so that's, I think, to me, why the X-Men have such a profound emotional reaction from so many people.
What preteen or teenager doesn't feel like
Exactly.
they're an outsider?
Exactly.
And here's a group of outsiders who have circumstances brought together, some of whom have had to face terrible personal loss and families torn apart and all that sort of thing. So they're it's like, oh yeah, I recognize myself, and that's the best kind of story where there's a character that brings you into the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They happen to have superhero powers, but each one of them.
Who doesn't really?
But each one of them has got their own personal issues, and that the fact that we were able to tell those stories in a Saturday morning context is, to me, still amazing.
Yeah.
And exciting.
Favorite?
Well, Fan of Beauty and the Beast, just because that was one of the stories I got to come up with, and Stephanie Matheson wrote that script. And I'm going to pass it to Eric because my personal favorite is the two-parter One Man's Worth, which deals with the concept of what if Xavier had not existed long enough to form the X-Men.
Yeah.
And
It's my favorite too.
and my personal bit in that is Storm and Wolverine.
Oh.
Okay, all right, go.
So this, when you're looking over 5 years and 76 stories, you come up with some that are okay. You come up with some that you maybe wished you had worked on a little more. And there's a handful that just seem to pop out and say, this is a perfect story for me and for this show. And the idea that we could tell a story that showed why the X-Men exist in the first place. I mean, and the way to show that is show a different timeline where they didn't exist, where someone went back, killed Xavier in college, and there's never an X-Men. So the opening sequence is you meet Wolverine and Storm, and someone asks them about going back and helping the X-Men. And who are the X-Men? I mean, X-Men, if they didn't exist, the world went to hell. And we stole from a couple of shows like It's a Wonderful Life or Sitting on the Edge of Forever.
From Star Trek.
I was going to say, there's that measure of in there.
But that little kernel of why do the X-Men exist was the most satisfying story that I think I worked on of all of them.
That's
And then
amazing.
seeing it, because it comes in the fourth season, but seeing, if you're watching it closely, Storm and Wolverine are a married couple. That's the only, and he's wearing a wedding ring, she's wearing a wedding ring. They're married and they're together and they're profoundly in love. And they're the perfect couple. Suddenly go 4 seasons in, they are the perfect couple. Why aren't they that? And then the fact that they're willing to risk that, because you don't know if they're going to get together again, and we realize they don't, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But they sacrifice that for the greater good, and they I think the show earned that moment.
Yeah.
Totally. What were some of the challenges about putting together the X-Men for a Saturday morning audience? I feel like this is a big question, right?
Yeah, well, at the start, you've got a bunch
How
of,
much time you got?
you've got these 20s and 30-somethings who have superpowers and fighting people that we had to make sure were even more powerful than they were. So there was a challenge to them that could destroy cities. And it's kids' shows, so they can't hit each other, and there can't be any blood, and there can't. And it's just there are all these lists of things that within a kids' show you're not supposed to do. And if you're trying to be serious about these people and their powers and their yearnings and what they wanted for the world, you had to have ridiculously intense drama to replace the violence and the sex that we obviously couldn't have be part of the show.
Right. Yeah.
To that end, very early on, broadcast standards and practices, a woman named Avery Coburn.
Wonderful. Saved that show.
You don't
Saved
hear much praise heaped on what you call the network censors, but that woman was responsible for allowing X-Men to be the show it was, which is, again, a tremendous thing.
Wow.
But I'm going to mention Morph.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
There's actually there's a question in from the audience questions, which I haven't even gotten to yet, but there is a question about more.
Speaking of Saturday morning kids show problems.
We made sure that he had the first thing we said, Mark Eden's eye, when we're doing the first 13 episodes and talking with Larry and Will, we need someone to die. We need an X-Men, not just someone on the side. We need an X-Men to die in the first story to show what the stakes are for these people. So it's not play acting, it's not play fighting, it's real. And I mean, it's so many stories that start that way. I mean, Bambi. Come on. So, and of course,
I was like,
think you're Finding Nemo.
Don't tell us how it ends.
Yeah,
Right.
every powerful Disney story starts with somebody dying. But this is kids' TV, so they said no, and then we talked them through it, and they said, okay, we trust you. Well, we'll see what you can do. It has to be off screen, but so Morph was created to be the person who was added to the team to kill in the first episode, and you're supposed to stay dead, and he did stay dead.
He did stay dead for one season.
And we went off, and we came back, and they showed 6 or 7 episodes, and it became a hit. And of course, in their wisdom, Fox gets a bunch of kids together for a focus group and says, "Who's your favorite X-Men from the first season?" 80% Morph. So we get the phone call saying, "I know you worked to kill this guy, but please, can we have him back?"
yeah. The question is, did you guys know that Morph would have such an impact on the viewers?
No. We knew we were creating him to be have an attachment to the characters, but we didn't know it was going to have that lasting of an impact. The original comic books had a character called Thunderbird, which was an American Indian character who dies in the first 3 or 4 issues of the book, and Morph does that same thing. We decided not to do the American Indian, to introduce the first American Indian character and then kill him off,
Right.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't look so good. So we went back to I think issues 48, 47 back there. And there was a character called Changeling who was created to die in one issue. And so I took the look of the way he looked, that became Morph. But we couldn't use the word Changeling because DC had Changeling in the Teen Titans. So it became Morph. And that's where that character came from for the show.
That's amazing.
If you go back and watch the Night of the Sentinels Part 1 and 2, when they come off the Blackbird after having lost Morph in the battle, speaking of Saturday morning, Wolverine comes up and...
Oh, he sucker punches them really hard.
Yeah,
Punches,
gets Cyclops right in the gut.
Yeah.
And says, next time I use the claws. And that one punch is the one time you're going to see any
That
kind
we
of
were allowed.
person
That
on
we were
person
allowed.
actual-
Had to
That's really
negotiate
funny.
that.
Yeah, and that was a big deal to express his rage and his
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
But that was a big deal for Saturday morning
I'm
as
like
well.
wondering because I've never liked Cyclops. So I'm wondering if this is why. Like, have we just gotten to the root of why I've hated Cyclops my whole life? Because like Wolverine's one of my favorites, and I do vividly remember him like punching Cyclops.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's for a different episode where we get into psychology.
We'll be back.
What were some of your favorite Easter eggs to include in the
Oh.
series?
Larry has a whole crate of Easter eggs.
Yeah. I included all the Easter eggs into the show. Basically, I remember as a kid reading the books in the 60s where Stan was trying to cross-promote the books. In Spider-Man, you might see Thor in one panel, and Thor, you might see, one of the other characters just for one panel. And so I remember that enthusiasm I had as a kid could translate into the show and also create anticipation for the kids, because if they see a cameo of a character in one episode, the next week, what's the next one? Everybody's wondering what other character is going to appear. But I also what I would do is with the cameos, I would only include it if it didn't interfere with their stories.
Oh, okay.
If it was, if the characters would be on the side or something, it would not be part of the original composition to distract you from it. But if you were, Marvel
Right.
fan, you'd pick up on it that this is this guy, this is this guy. And so for me, the favorite ones I think I can remember is that, I had the Watcher was an mutant alien on the moon or something like that.
Oh, yeah, let him know, because you had to call him something different.
Oh, that's right.
He put Spider-Man in one early, and they said, no, we can't use him. We don't have the rights. Because he didn't have the rights to any of the other characters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he just stopped naming them.
Yeah. There was one episode where these guys wrote called Genosha.
Slave Island.
And Slave
Yeah.
Island,
Slave
that's
Island.
the one. Yeah. And the writer wrote Mutant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I brought my comic books to work, and I told, because there was no internet, remember?
Yeah.
I put it on a Xerox machine, and I said, okay, make this Blob, make this Sunfire, make this, these characters,
That's so
and so I populated the world with Marvel characters, but I kept the original names.
In
1,
the
2,
story-
3, 4, 5.
In the storyboards, yes.
In the
So legal would
storyboards
just
and
say,
everything.
oh, it's
Yeah,
mutant
legal
one.
wouldn't
Yeah.
notice.
They had no
That's
imagination.
amazing.
What, Norse mutant?
Norse mutant.
Oh, yes.
North mutant with
Norse
hammer.
Is
Yeah,
that
Yes.
Norse mutant with
Yes.
hammer. Oh
Phoenix,
my.
Dark Phoenix, when they're up there and you see the Watcher and you see Doctor Strange and
Yeah.
you see
He's-
Thor.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
see Spider-Man.
And see
for a split second.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it was in.
risk.
Yeah, I snuck Spider-Man in. I think it was in. I can't remember Phoenix or
Phoenix,
Dark
Dark,
Phoenix,
yeah.
but the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And I drew this scene of a chimney. You see the shadow of Spider-Man come in, and then in the foreground, you see this hand come. All you see is this much, and the web comes
amazing.
out, and then the next shot, you see the webbing save somebody.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so I got a chance to put them in, and this was just a mutant arm.
Yeah.
And Deadpool and Black Panther.
Oh, that's
but
right.
both of those
Oh,
were
God,
the
that's
first-
right. Yeah.
First Black Panther
I
appearance,
did the
right?
first animated Black Panther ever when I think it was Sanctuary Part 1 and 2, because Magneto goes to collect some mutants. So I figured, okay, let me throw in some cameos.
there's-
Oh
and
my
so-
gosh, they're perfect.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
That's
there
it
they
right
are.
there.
Yeah, there's,
That's
the,
it
there's
right
the
there.
Norseman on the roof with a hammer.
Yeah. The Norseman, there's the Watcher, what's not called the Watcher.
Amazing.
He's an alien observer.
Alien, yeah.
And there's Doctor Strange. I think he's not called Doctor Strange in the model sheet I sent to him.
Yeah.
But he's
Magic
called something.
guy.
He's a-
Magic guy.
He's a magic guy, yeah.
Oh my god.
And,
That's, and it's so funny. You couldn't get away with this now. Because
Oh,
now
no,
everyone knows who all
no,
these
no.
characters are.
no, a lot of
Ignorance is bliss.
I know, right? Exactly.
No, a lot of what I tell the fans who come talk to us is that a lot of decisions that were made in the show were made by this small group, and you couldn't do that today.
Right.
There's so many cooks in the kitchen that we
Yeah.
couldn't do this again.
Yeah,
you couldn't replicate this.
Yeah, Marvel didn't have a final say on the stories or the dialogue. They would suggest, and we could just say, no, sorry, we like it this way.
And they were based in New York at that time, and we were all at Los
Small
Angeles.
company.
Wow.
And
Right.
coming out of bankruptcy or going into
They were going
bankruptcy?
into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
They did it in 96. We were 92 through 97. So during the show, they
Wow.
went bankrupt.
But
Right.
speaking of Easter eggs, my absolute personal favorite is we talked Beauty and the Beast, where Beast falls in love with a woman named Carly. The point is, several seasons later,
Yeah.
he just is at a computer at the keyboard, and
Oh,
if you
right.
know what you're looking for, there's a picture of Carly taped to the screen, and it just
Yeah,
says "Love Carly"
Carly.
on it. You had to be paying attention.
I
I
need
know.
to go back and look.
And it goes
Yeah.
by that fast, but that
Wow.
was exactly the kind of
Yeah, I
thing.
was
where
trying
it
to
just-
Yeah.
connect in the episodes so they weren't totally disconnected. That kind of like a little thread to
Yeah.
connect
Yeah.
episodes together.
Attention to detail. Is
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's incredible. Who's your favorite character?
As a writer, it was just a delight to write for Beast because he was the smartest guy in the room, and we all wanted to outdo each other and prove that we were the smartest people by trying to come up with the cleverest
That's
quotes, the
amazing.
most, that. So Beast was tremendous fun to write for.
My usual quip is Submariner, but that's a deep dive.
Look at that.
I think writing the episode for Iceman was fun because it's interesting father-son dynamic and all sorts of complexity, and I mean it's such a rich world. You could choose any of the characters and say,
Right.
oh, that would be good and that would be fun. So. You're just lucky to have a chance to do any of this,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, well, I had deep empathy for Charles Xavier because I had, over the course of 5 years, 17, 18 different writers writing on the show for me. And so I felt like I was the father figure trying to keep this all straight.
Herding kittens.
Yeah,
Yes.
Herding cats.
keeping it all.
Herding cats.
Yeah. So he
Yeah.
he meant a lot to me.
I guess for me, as an artist, Wolverine was the easiest guy to draw because you just show him, angry coming at you. So, as an artist, it's Wolverine, and as a complex character, I guess it's going to be Rogue, because she's got all of the stuff, hang-ups and stuff going on in her head.
Totally.
So it's kind of like duality between those two characters.
Awesome. So now I'm going to do a quick
All right.
little plug for
Ah,
Eric's
okay.
book right here. So what was it like to put together a project like previously on the X-Men, and what do you hope fans take away from your book?
Well, this was 2 years, and it was wonderful for me because I got to interview all the cast who, they were in Toronto. They were 3,000 miles away, so they would record, and we'd get an audio cassette, so how long ago it was,
Wow. Mailed.
and give notes, and then they'd re-record. So we, even though we'd written, 76 stories for them. We'd never met them.
Right.
Oh my God.
We
So,
still haven't met them.
so I
They
got
hadn't invented the airplane yet.
yeah.
Way back.
So I got to know all of those people, and I got to get back together with all of these people that we worked with, and it was great because there weren't grudges, there weren't terrible memories, almost to a person, cast, crew, artist, executive. It was the best job they ever had.
When
It's
does
just-
that ever happen?
Yeah, it's just like
That's
it's
incredible.
like lightning in a bottle. It's just
Right.
like everything came together,
Yeah.
and the right people were rowing the same way.
Right,
Just-
yeah.
had the same vision
Yeah.
and fought off all the other people that wanted to change the show enough to where it was able to become successful. And so writing the book was just a pleasure. I mean, it's just remembering great days.
Yeah. And how can fans get this book?
Oh, okay. There, you can get it from Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, write the publisher at
JacobsBrownMediaGroup.com,
JacobsBrownMediaGroup.com.
and you can order through them, and Eric will have signed each
I
copy.
signed like a couple thousand for them, so
Wow.
they've got them to send.
That's amazing.
And if you ever show up at a convention and they happen to be there,
Yeah.
Yes.
sometimes some other writers are there, so more people sign the book
Right,
too.
right. So if you
Yeah.
find a con near you, come by. We'll always have a stack of books there to sell, and then he's right. You'll get more signatures.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's great.
We are getting so many audience questions.
Oh.
So do you guys want to just transition into the audience questions, or is there a break that we have? Or I don't think there was a break written in. So let's just
Sure.
go. Are you guys good?
We're good.
How are you
Yeah,
feeling?
yeah,
Good? Cool.
Good. We're very good.
Yeah.
Well, first up, there's a lot of questions, like not even questions, just like comments about thanking you all for the X-Men, like what Weissfire, I think is the username, says the X-Men made it okay for everyone to be different and helped so many of us find our own people. So thank you.
That
That's-
breaks
So-
It does, honestly.
you.
Well,
Really
thank you.
And then Ali Marceau says, so many kids who are now adults were influenced to become comic fans, which has led to the existence of these movies. And let's be honest, the MCU, it wouldn't exist without you guys.
We say this all the time.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you guys so
Whoever
much.
wrote that, thank you,
Yes.
because that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
We,
This
Like-
was the proof of concept for the Marvel Universe, and
Right.
they've done wonderful things since.
Yeah.
But if this hadn't existed, who knows?
I
Yeah.
say this is the bridge.
this is
Yeah.
the bridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is the bridge
because
that
we
opened
grew
it
up
up.
with it, and we became the comic fans who are now making the movies. They're all in the age group that
Right.
would have watched the
Yeah.
show.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you probably heard that when they made the first X-Men movie, they didn't pick up a comic book; they just watched our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. That makes complete sense to me. Wow. Okay, so here's a fun question. Who is your favorite couple on the show? They listed like a whole bunch of options, but I'm just gonna go with who is your favorite couple on the show?
The couple? I guess Gambit and Rogue, the way they played off each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the right answer. No, but there are other couples, but yes, they're my
Yeah.
favorite. I'm answering these questions too. I'm a part of this, so yeah, Gambit and Rogue. Anyway.
Well, for me, as I said, Storm and Wolverine, and it's heartbreaking, but yeah.
All of the episodes I wrote, they were dysfunctional relationships. So I'm not entirely sure I could answer that properly.
I'll come up with an obscure one because Wolverine had like 7.
Yeah, there
different
are quite a few pairings with Wolverine.
Yeah,
Yes.
seven.
Yes.
Lenny
Yeah.
Deathstrike, whatever. Who was the guy from the Mojo verse? My mind just went blank. The young, the like 23-year-old that came through and gave Jubilee her first kiss.
Oh, yeah.
That probably
Oh,
ended
that's the
well.
guy with long shot.
Was it?
Long shot. Long shot gave Jubilee her first kiss. So that is an obscure couple. I bet it's not listed there.
No, it's not. There's like a whole bunch with Wolverine, and
And
then
how did that
obviously,
turn out for
the
them?
Cyclops and Ray.
Yeah.
He lived in another universe.
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
it was fine.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
All right, so it's a geography issue.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh my gosh. Can you please tell Eric the synopsis that he wrote as a permanent story is on my Instagram. Eric, you are exceptional.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Wow. Great compliment there, dude.
Yeah. That's amazing. So yeah, again, just wanted to stop by and say thank you for my childhood. You all are amazing.
That's music to our ears.
It
Yeah.
really is. It really is.
All right. I'm like gonna cry, but that's cool. Was there any member of the X-Men that you wished you could have brought onto the show as a permanent member of the team?
Oh, okay. As a permanent member, probably would have, if we could have, it would have been Colossus.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
You know.
what a good one.
You know, because he seemed to gel well with the group.
Yeah.
Although his powers are duplicated by Rogue, he would have been a fun character. The other one, I guess, would have been Nightcrawler. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you could
just keep
You
going.
could just keep
Yeah.
going and adding more and more to it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little behind the scenes tidbit here. You thought it was going to end with season 4. That was
Oh, right.
the order was in, and every season each of us were told, okay, we're only getting you for 13 more episodes. There was never the comfort that it's going to run.
Yeah,
Oh, well, let's come back for
And that's
5
the
more.
problem we had back then. Yeah, is
Yeah.
that we had no guarantee from one year to another if we were going to be hired back.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, there was actually, it was supposed to end at episode 65, not 76, and it was that big 4-parter,
Beyond Good and
Beyond
Evil.
Good and Evil.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of that thing was to end the series with 5 X-Men leaving and 4 new X-Men becoming part of the core team.
And that's how it would end.
And so all the guest stars in that show,
Bishop,
Bishop,
Shard,
Bishop and Shard, and Archangel and Psylocke, those 4 were coming in, and Jean and Scott were going off to have a family. Storm was going off somewhere. We had written all this in for 5 folks to leave, and these 4 to stay. 160-page script for 4 parts. And then we get the call saying, "Oh, oops, we need 11 more episodes, so you're going to have to change all that." And all those people that you had coming in, and you set up the whole story so that they would become new X-Men, they're just going to say goodbye and leave. Sorry.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
sad.
Television.
So we still have the script where they all leave, and we have the original script.
Oh, wow.
at how. So
That's amazing.
if they want to make that,
Yeah.
movie, if they want to make that movie, they can do it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Are there any newer X-Men that have been created since the series ended that you would love to add to your team?
Oh boy.
I have an answer.
You do?
Oh,
I'll go with your
okay.
answer.
Yeah, you answer this one.
Just
So-
like
well,
everybody who watches the show is gonna know my answer. X-23.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
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 Yes.
She'd be a great addition to
Yeah, she
the
would be.
story, and
She
she would
would.
fit in with the team.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Love it.
That's
Anyway, you guys should answer for real.
And Jubilee and she could, become
Yeah,
buds.
exactly. They're like the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it.
Totally.
yeah. Good answer.
Yeah.
I like your answer.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You're on the team.
Yay! That's awesome. Cool. Well, there you go. Sorry for whoever asked that question. I hijacked the answer. Wow. Okay. I'm a comic book artist, and because of this show, I married my husband because we both love the show,
Oh,
and
wow.
we collect characters from this show specifically.
Bringing
That's their
people
collect- I
together.
know,
That's
exactly.
what X-Men does.
Exactly. How long did it take, or did you guys have an equivalent of a show Bible, and how long did it take before you could create it? Isn't that you?
It's actually
Me?
it's actually this way.
Oh.
Yeah, because they're the writers.
Yeah, we
I
would.
thought that you're in his brain because of the stack of comics.
I wish. Although Larry sent me all the research material that I and Mark Edens used to set up the Bible in the first 2 seasons. Neither one of us knew the books, and so we had help from people like Larry that would answer all of our questions really.
Yeah.
It was a really rushed job. Batman we were supposed to premiere in September of '92, the same time as Batman. They had been in pre-production for a year when we got the green light in February saying, "You've got 7 months here." They literally asked me, "Could you have the Bible and the first 13 stories laid out in a week?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we just boom, boom, boom. He had Larry, and there's a guy named Robert Skier who sleeps in X-Men pajamas. He gave me a long list of here's all the character traits, and Larry gave me the Marvel Universe. There's a reference book that had all the powers and
The
everything.
handbook and stuff. Yeah.
But there was because we've done lots of shows, and some Bibles get very long. Production Bibles can get 70, 80 pages if you're putting all the detail and then all the pictures in with it.
Right.
I handed out the first week like a 22-page thing that said the beginning of a Bible or notes to a Bible because I was so embarrassed.
Wow.
It was so short. And it got passed around, and they said, that's fine, write the script, go. And it was a really rushed job, and the budgets were tight, and and actually there were a lot of production teething problems, and that's why the show premiered in January, not in September.
Yeah.
Because they tried to rush it.
You just can't rush perfection.
Or even
Apparently,
competency.
they tried.
Yeah. No, Margaret stood up for us because we were getting back production from overseas that wasn't up to the quality level that we wanted, and so she stepped in and told them, you will deliver the stuff, you will deliver the retakes, and you will deliver a good show for us. And she backed the show out. Instead of being September, she backed it all the way back out until January, which cost her a lot of money.
They had to do reruns during
reruns
the entire
and-
fall.
Yeah, to pay, they had already people pay commercials on it and everything. It was a big cost for them, but she knew that she wanted the show to have the best possible way of surviving. So it debuted in January. Now the accidental benefit of that is that when we came on in January, all the other shows were in reruns. So we were the only new show out there in January. So all the eyeballs went to the X-Men.
It worked out.
So
It worked
really
out.
nicely.
Yeah.
Heather wants to know, who's everyone's favorite villain?
Ooh.
Hers is
Couple.
Mystique. She just
Oh,
wanted
okay.
yeah.
The one that's the most fun for me to draw is going to be Mr. Sinister, because I play him like Dracula, coming in and out of the.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I because of it, I tried to be true to his costume, but he's got this rooster tail cape. He's got rib lines all over the damn place, and when you have all those type of details, you don't. If you try and make them do this or this, the animators, you're just going to kill the animators.
Yeah.
So what I did was, whenever the storyboards came in, I would just change them, and just have them like come in and out of black, maybe on a close up, and then he would be talking to you. Then you cut to this person. When you come back to him, he's over there.
Oh.
And when you come back to him, maybe he's over there.
Yeah.
I never let him walk anywhere.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then when he finishes his lines or whatever he's going to do, he just walked back into the shadows.
So it made him creepier.
Yeah.
It made him creepier, yeah.
For real.
So it was fun to try and create a new atmosphere, the atmosphere around Sinister, which was different from Magneto, different from Apocalypse and stuff, So for me, it was like he was more fun
yeah.
to play with.
I would say Mystique, absolutely.
Mystique.
You're-
Heather.
Yeah, Heather is right. Fascinating character, damaged. You understand why she's so awful, but boy, is she awful. She has done everything she could to hurt everyone else because deep inside, she's also just a wreck.
Yeah.
So a fascinating character to write. Not a nice person. But
Yeah.
Apocalypse with that, and this goes back to
The voice.
the voice. An actor named John Colicos was the voice of Apocalypse, and we didn't realize this until years later, which breaks my heart. But John Colicos was the very first Klingon in Star Trek, the original series.
Yes.
We didn't know that.
Do you know
Yeah.
when he's down there with Kirk on the planet of
Yeah.
peaceful people,
Yeah.
and their ships are up there and they can't fight, and he's going to I'm going to make your mind a vegetable with my brain scanner. That's John Colicos.
That's John
Was the
Colicos,
first
yeah.
Klingon, and he's also our Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Same guy. I'll find it for you in the book if you don't believe me.
No, I
page
absolutely
212
believe you.
or
That's
something.
Yeah.
just like, because I'm like a huge Trekkie too, so I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like,
And,
That was him.
and by the way, they didn't even know if that show was going to work either.
Yeah,
So
that's true. That's true.
there's a kind of a
Synergy.
connection.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So he's kind of my favorite too, but I think the relationship between Charles and Magneto is so
okay.
special that it kind of lifts Magneto to heights for me that he normally wouldn't have.
So this actually is a really good question. Who do each of you think is right, Magneto or Xavier?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
I have to go along with it, Xavier.
Yeah.
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 Xavier.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I point out that when you had the order for the first 13, and you didn't know if it was going to go beyond that,
Yeah.
you and Mark made the conscious decision rather than have like bad mutant of the week for the X-Men episodes, the use of the Sentinels, who were made by the humans. So you set up the human people who hated the mutants just
being
because
more
they're mutants.
villainous, and so that you would see that tension rather the tension between. If we just had a tension between 13 different mutants the first season, you wouldn't have got a sense of how mutants and humans were different, or why there was an issue between the two groups. So we very much tried to make it Sentinel human problem, and had Magneto almost be, like a good guy, a friend, an ally. He offers, you want to come join me, so that keeping those two apart. But that was.
Who's the bigger monster?
Exactly.
And we know a lot of people that think Magneto is. It's weird. Obviously, we're sympathetic to Charles Xavier, and that's the way we want the world to be.
Yes.
But Magneto wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
He was, everything he told them, that was made him a great villain to write, because he could look at the X-Men and say, Charles is deluded. This is what the world is reacting to. When they see you, they're afraid, and they've got a right to be afraid. And if you want to survive, you've got to come with me. And he wasn't lying. He wasn't tricking them. No. He was telling the truth.
Yeah. When we had the first season, the last episode that we thought we had was 13. I think it was called the Final Decision.
Final Decision.
Where we had like tons of Sentinels coming after the X-Men, and at the end of the episode, I had Xavier's getting ready. It looks like he's going to do a kamikaze run at Master Mode, and Magneto comes nearby and saves him with an additional shield to stop the blast from killing Xavier. Yeah. And when he's parachuting down, they have a nice, dialogue between the two of them, establishing their friendship and frenemies, relationship to each other.
And I think it's the best thing that the movies have kept from our show was their relationship.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is actually a really great question to be like the last question. Which mutant power would you want?
There's lots of them, but
I know. There's so many.
But I saw. I don't know, when I saw that film with Nightcrawler popping all over the place and taking everybody, it's like, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I'd like further than line of sight.
That's the problem I always have, because I love Nightcrawler's powers, really love it. But then when it comes into like, oh, well, I have to know where I'm bamfing.
I feel like some cheese, I'm going to Switzerland.
It doesn't work, because you can wind up, in the Alps and not in a village with cheese.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Superpowers. Flying has always been my childhood dream. I think with drones now it'll be more problematic, but I think that would.
But flying like Magneto or flying like Banshee, like who would you fly like?
Rogue flies.
Rogue flies also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
We had a distinction. We were told you got to be specific with Storm. She doesn't fly. She drifts on air currents that she creates.
Yeah. And like
So
Banshee
we
uses
animated
sound
her.
waves to fly.
Yeah.
So there's like different characters fly
Which
different ways.
that'd be unpleasant.
Yeah.
Oh, but you see, I think that'd be fun.
Really?
I would choose Storm because also with the powers that she has.
I was thinking Banshee.
Oh, Banshee, that would hurt your ears.
yeah.
Look at us both.
Right.
I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's always fun to get in there and get visceral like Wolverine and just tear something up. But if you want to take out an army, Storm's powers up there, she can control the weather. That would be, and she can fly. So that would be fun.
I'm just going to interject. Please note, and you guys have talked about this at panels, the most powerful characters in this series are the women characters.
Oh yeah.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Who's the Omega level mutant here?
Exactly.
What do you do with this?
Yeah.
So it just it was an interesting dynamic, and probably not something that one saw too often at that time.
Or even now.
Even
Yeah.
today.
Well, I mean, we've got certain Captain Marvel coming out, and
This is true.
She's going to,
Yeah.
be kind of up there in the scale of things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But no, when you think about it, you think about you think of Storm, Rogue, and Jean Grey at first, and then you're like, oh right, the actual leader is Xavier. But when you send out your army, you're sending like Rogue, Jean Grey, and
Who
Storm.
can pick up a bus?
Yeah.
Go with that.
And yet it didn't draw attention to itself in that, well, the men are less than. It was this was just absolute.
Everybody
was powerful, and everyone has powers.
Yeah.
And we chose the team from the writing side to be as distinct from each other as possible. None of them are like the others.
Right.
There's no duplication. As I said, we could have Bishop and and Wolverine
Colossus.
and Cable and Colossus, and we could have had 6 big gruff guys
Yeah.
Right.
growling at each other, and
Yeah.
you can't tell stories that
Right.
way. So we picked. And,
Yeah.
Oh, quick favorite power. That's rough.
I know.
Jean and Xavier have. I guess Jean's is a little more interesting because she's more empathetic and she's more protective. You know, which is, and she wasn't necessarily going to be a major character. She and Beast were not written in the first line of characters when we started building the show. And then we started writing the show, and both of them asserted themselves as absolutely necessary to be. But yeah, we put Beast in jail because we thought he was just going to be in 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And suddenly we said, no, we can't.
I don't know. I would not have, like, I loved Beast. Like, I loved him so much. I can't imagine the show without Beast.
Yeah,
Right.
we can't either.
But again, civil disobedience.
Right.
You know, introducing that concept into a Saturday morning kids show and then watching it play out. You know, that's
Yeah.
I was
That's
impressed
crazy.
they got to do that.
Thank you guys so much for being here. We still have another X-Men segment, so if you'd like to stick around and talk to us about a couple of our premium format figures,
Sure.
we'd love to have you.
Sure.
my
But
God.
we are going to give you all a short video break. We'll be right back. Thank you for watching Sideshow.